What I want to talk about today is something that's important to all of us as entrepreneurs. It's the notion of innovation, how to understand it, when to catch it. It's like a wave. For a moment, you have it. The next moment, it's gone. As entrepreneurs, we must look to the future and anticipate those moments. For the last 25 years, I've spent most of my time focusing on this notion of innovation, not just as an entrepreneur, but also as a bit of a futurist. And I'm going to share with you a formula and maybe even a little bit of a glimpse into what is coming. You see, since the beginning of time, humanity's greatest challenges, they've been triggered by extreme disruptive innovation. Clay Christensen, the famous Harvard professor who coined the term, understood that if we looked at disruptive innovation, it would always come at a point of being static. But there is another impact of disruptive innovation. It happens during the worst of times and when humanity is tested. What happens after that disruptive innovation is some new order, realignment of supply chains, realignment of countries, partnerships. And if we can anticipate what those are, then we have the opportunity to bring them into our business. With each disruptive event comes a new innovation cycle. In the 1900s, when we moved from horse carriages to automobiles, the automobile in one instant destroyed an entire industry of maintaining horses, stables, replacing it with gas stations, replacing it with mechanics. That whole industry resulted in that moment of innovation. If you look at that moment as number one on the slide, a significant labor disruption. Why does it matter for us? Today we've been talking about captive centers, offshore centers, the future of people, labor here in India. And what we don't understand is that all the opportunity that we see here is also fleeting if it remains only focused on human labor. It only takes one innovation to destroy it. And AI, of course, is one of those innovations. So let's look at this curve. The innovation is the blue line. And as the innovation happens, right? I gave the example of the automobile displacing the horse carriage. What happens to labor? Well, labor goes into unemployment. Labor must be reskilled, and people need to either retire or find some type of new gainful opportunity. Same thing happened with the iPhone or the internet or so many other moments in time, and we're at one of those moments today. But what you see about this diagram also is that the innovation cycles in the last 20 years have become faster, 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 and faster. And that means humanity and people need to adapt quicker and quicker and quicker. And we're not adapting, right? We're not fast enough. With each innovation cycle, labor productivity must go up and labor volume goes down. And I'm going to explain that. Innovation happens following a global crisis, right? And I'm going to explain with some very specific examples what that is and what that means. But a global crisis is something that impacts all supply chains, impacts all products, services. It's a macroeconomic impact. A disruptive innovation comes, and the rise of what we call a new world order. How can entrepreneurs, leaders predict these disruptive events? With the end of World War II, the world entered into a period of disinformation, isolation, and the separation of people. We had new lines drawn, even here, right, with India, Pakistan. New lines, Israel. The global conflicts that we see today were set following the end of the Cold War and following the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War. But what ended the Cold War? What was the disruptive innovation that made it happen, made it end? You think it was Mikhail Gorbachev or Ronald Reagan? No. It was the internet. It was the internet, because if you're operating in a country of isolation, and in that time period, for those of you that were around and can still remember, some of you youngsters may not, but if you remember, the Iron Curtain kept information away from the Russian people. That information, once made available to them, would integrate them into the global economy. What happened to India with the internet? And the information age was born. Y2K. And the connectedness of people. Thomas Friedman spoke about that in his famous book, The World is Flat. So from the Cold War, that conflict ended by the internet and threw us into the internet information age. COVID-19 triggered a similar opportunity. The instant adoption of digital and remote technologies. We were isolated in an instant, and in an instant the innovation came and threw us into the digital age. Many of the technologies were already there, but not properly utilized. So think about this as an entrepreneur. If I could only predict those cycles, where would my business be? Again, I'm a student of innovation. I spent most of my life trying to understand how it happens. How do we grasp it? So what's next? What's the next major age? What is the next major innovation that will lead to new opportunities for entrepreneurs? Well, let's recap for a moment. The end of the Cold War, internet age was born. I remember that. I was a presidential appointee for Bill Clinton. In the 1990s, can you imagine? I worked for the US government as a lawyer, and we did not have internet. I watched the internet getting plugged in. There was a man in the back of the room who said, "This is a really bad idea. If we give everyone the internet, nobody will work." Another gentleman in the back of the room raised his hand and said, "I was here when we put phones on desks and everybody is still working." So technology has this power, right, of stressing people, creating opportunities for people. Then Y2K hit. Of course, that was also the end of the world. How many of you remember Y2K? That was the end of the world. Hundreds of thousands of engineers hired to solve a simple problem of changing a 2-digit year to a 4-digit year. The information age was born. The digital age, as we know, born out of COVID. And now we're entering into this new place, this imagination age. And if you can grasp it for a moment, it will help you structure and think about the entrepreneurship in front of you. So what is the crisis in the imagination age that is going to propel us into this new disruptive innovation? It is the polycrisis, and I'm going to describe what that means. The disruption is artificial intelligence. We all know what that means. How many of you have children that use it today? How many of you use Gen AI today? It is tremendously disruptive, as you know. The polycrisis is a series of challenges that is facing the world today. The World Economic Forum called the poly crisis the single biggest issue in front of us today. Look at these conflicts. 24 months ago, I said, these are where the conflicts are. Nobody believed me. Now everybody knows what they are. Israel, Palestine, Syria, Nordics and Russian border, India-Pakistan border, India-China border, South China Sea, Taiwan, North Korea. Isn't it interesting that these conflicts all border to create a single line? What does that tell you about the separation in the world and the opportunity for innovation because of this crisis? The trading blocks are changing, I told you. After conflict, new world orders are born. We're watching as the United States takes new positions on trade. India does the same. Will India participate in BRIC or not? What is going to be the outcome of its currency? What will be the United States policy on trade? How will that impact how we outsource, how we build our captives, where we manufacture? Are you starting to get the picture? So this poly crisis is going to set up the stage for the innovation to come. Because if you're an optimistic person like me, I know that there will always be opportunities in the worst of times. Those of you that take advantage of those opportunities will be great. Those of you that miss those opportunities will be forgotten. The poly crisis has also created a race for scarce resources. Overnight, more than 80 countries now have a presence in space. We have a new space race to the moon, to Mars, to low Earth orbit. 733 million people still, though, don't have access to electricity. 2.4 billion people faced moderate to severe food insecurity. And 3.7 billion people do not have access to the internet. Arjun Malhotra, one of the greats here at TiE, you would know about him and his story because he was a board of trustee, once told me, he said, when those billions come online, they will create competition like we've never seen before. And what do you think Elon Musk's Starlink is going to do overnight? In 3 years, 3.7 billion people will now come online, and those will be the most fiercest competitors you've ever seen because they have nothing to lose. The competition is coming. The poly crisis, what else is happening? Rise in trade and economic instability. 90% of North American companies are relocating. They're relocating out of China. Apple is coming to India, moving to other nearer, closer, friendlier shores. Overnight, one incident, the invasion of Ukraine, resulted in 98% of US companies leaving Russia overnight within 30 days. 98%. Again, you're getting the picture. This crisis is begging a solution. 250 billion invested in new factory construction throughout the United States. Even more here in India. General Electric now creating and building F414 engines in India. First time, Apple bringing manufacturing to India. AI will end the poly crisis. That is the disruptive innovation that will end it. Where we take it is up to us. But this new age, which I call the imagination age, is a perfect age. Because in this new age, AI will enhance human productivity. But what will happen to the call centers? What will happen to human processing? The same thing that happened to the worker that supported the horse and carriage industry. They're going to disappear. And they're going to disappear overnight. We have to diversify our investments today. The day of reckoning is coming. I remember when I used to type my essay papers on a typewriter. And when I made a mistake, I ripped the paper out, crumpled it up, and threw it away. Not very environmental of me. And I'd start over. Sometimes I'd go to the library, I'd research, I'd come up with a 10-page paper, only to discover that that 10-page paper was wrong. I made a mistake because my fundamental research had to be corrected. I had to do it again. But AI and technology today gives us unbroken stream of thought. We can make changes on the fly. We can challenge ourselves with AI. So 60 to 70% of resources can be absorbed by Gen AI today. What will it be tomorrow with predictive analytics and digital assistants? The data will travel with us. AI promises over 50% productivity gains from traditional labor-based solutions. Look at business process outsourcing, apps, infrastructure, contact centers, human resources, all of them being disrupted from 40 to 60%, which means people have to get better, but it also means the type of processing they do will become more sophisticated. So what's happening? AI is the disruptive innovation that ends the poly crisis. That's the theory. But look back at the labor line. I told you every innovation is coming faster. What happens when the line merges? When the labor and innovation line emerges, what we think, what we dream becomes immediate. It already is that way today. Gen AI, I go on ChatGPT, take notes for me, they're done. Summarize, they're done. Draw a picture for me, it's done. Take this design, 3D print it, done. So we're at a point where labor has no more time and opportunity to catch up to the innovation. On the contrary, we're in perfect sync and alignment with the innovation. What does that mean for your business? What does that mean for your opportunity? You see, it's coming. The rise of the imagination age, where the cycle of innovation and labor disruption are perfectly aligned, is now. And we will experience total freedom to dream with infinite creativity. 4 things will happen in this new imagination age. The ubiquity of artificial intelligence. It will be embedded in all of our homes. It'll be embedded in all of our walls. It will follow us wherever we go. We will have freedom from conflict zones, which means for the first time with that freedom, we can really meet Thomas Friedman's dream and work globally, no matter where we are, in a Starbucks cafe or on the top of a mountain, with the same level and quality of engagement. We will achieve the grand challenges. Yes, the Sustainable Development Goals can be achieved with the right innovation. And we will have universal connectivity. In the imagination age, I will walk from my home after being on a video call into my car like this man, and I will continue the conversation unbroken. I am not driving, I am self-driving, and go to my office, and all the data is traveling with me, because this data lives in a place called digital air, and it travels with me based upon my biometrics. What does that mean for your business? What does it mean for productivity? The imagination age, the future belongs to specialists. And I have just a minute or two. I want to tell you something very quickly about this. There was a study conducted of doctors and patient diagnosis. It was just in the New York Times. It was just published in the last month. In that study, the doctors that participated, AI generated 90% of the correct diagnosis of the patients. When the doctor was not using AI, 70% correct diagnosis. When the doctor was using AI, 75% of the correct diagnosis. Human beings are bringing AI down. So you have to be a specialist. You have to be a licensed professional. You have to go deep in what you're doing in this new world. In the imagination age, AI will transform the way we live. I mentioned transboundary working. Of course, we know that because of the information age, but it'll be totally distributed. We will hopefully have more time with people and less with devices and machines, because our biometrics will connect with the world around us. immersive and multisensory experiences, the promises of the metaverse, I believe will come to reality, and we will, in unified way, always be connected to each other with no visible wires or technology. In this new imagination age, let us lead with purpose, innovate with courage, and inspire a future where imagination knows no bounds. This is your chance as an entrepreneur to grab a hold of that wave, to imagine what innovation is to come and create great value. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me once again read that slide. In this